Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this Works with Enfocus Switch webinar. Today we have a special one. We have in the audience or in the panel as well, Noel and John from Meadows Solutions. I do pronounce this correctly, John, I hope.
Um, my name,
Your
John.
name?
Oh, yeah, Creo is the name. John Creo
Creo.
here. Yeah.
Perfect. So welcome everybody to this Works with Focus Switch webinar together with Curio as well. So who do we have here as your hosts today? We have John Creo. He's the president at Meadows Publishing Solutions. We're also joined together with Noel Williams, vice president at Meadows Publishing Solutions, and of course myself, David Verstaan, the App Store manager here at Enfocus. So what are we going to see today? Well, first of all, we're going to see an integration between AccurioPro and Enfocus Switch. I know this is a mixed audience. Some of you already have Enfocus Switch or know a lot about Enfocus Switch. Some of you are new and maybe do not know who Enfocus is or who Meadows is. So bear with us for a couple of slides in a couple of minutes just to allow us to present ourselves and who is Enfocus and who is Meadows in the end. Now, first of all, who's Enfocus? For people that do not know who Enfocus is, we started in 1993, already a couple of years ago, with our flagship product, Pitstop Pro at that time. It is a business unit of ESCO, so we are part of that ESCO family as well. And what are we focusing on is to develop affordable and flexible automation for commercial print and wide format companies. Next to Pitstop Pro, we also have automation software called Enfocus Switch. This is our middleware that connects anything with everything, where also Meadows is a partner of and part of our Enfocus Works with Enfocus Switch program. I said Switch is a middleware. What is a middleware? It actually is the connection between your input and your output. So whatever that your ordering system that you have, is that, for example, a B2B or B2C website? Is it, for example, an MIS system or an ERP system? Or if you have a job onboarding environment, we are able to capture all of those orders, extract the metadata or the data connected to it, so the product description, and then apply automatic tasks to it. Is that now pre-flighting? Is that now in positioning? Is that now sending jobs directly to your DFE, to your RIP software, or to your wide format machine? It really does not matter. In between all of that, we also have the generation of variable data outputs, and that is what we're focusing on today, and how we actually integrated Meadows or Curio Pro within the Switch ecosystem. Like I already mentioned, Meadows is a Works with Enfocus Switch partner. What does that mean? That means that Enfocus and Meadows work very closely together to do a very tight integration between two software packages. Now, we know that integration sometimes costs time and money. If you need to do an integration yourself as a company, you need specialists, like, for example, program developers to write a specific code for that integration. What we've done here in Focus is that we've done that integration work already for you. That integration is ready and available for every Switch user. Where is this available? On our Enfocus App Store. If you visit our App Store, you will see already a lot of integrations on there, where you also can find, in this case, for this webinar, very relevant, and you see that on the screen, the AccurioPro VDP app. The only thing that you need to do is visit our App Store, select which app that you want to install to your Switch installation. It will be automatically downloaded to your Switch installation and available for you to start setting up the automation in the end. How many apps do we already have on the App Store? I counted this in September 24th, so I need to update this slide a little bit. But at that time, we were at 312 published apps on our App Store. Free, a couple of them are free, a couple of them are paying as well. Install base wise, Around 94% of our switch installations use at least one free app, where 16% are using payable apps. So yes, the free apps are a little bit more popular than the paying apps. And I have good news as well. The Accurio VDP app is also a free app for all our switch users under active maintenance or subscription. We, as Enfocus, do not sell direct. So if you're interested in a switch, we have a huge reseller network. Visit our website, contact, for example, one of our resellers. They can also help you with the switch installation itself. Enough about me, enough about Enfocus. I will give the stage now to John, that will do a small explanation about Accurio, VDP, and Meadows as well. John, can you share your screen, please?
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm going to shut my camera off here if you all don't mind. And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Give me 1 second. And let me start off here. All right. Let me know if
Perfect.
you're not seeing this here, but you should be seeing my slide deck
I'm
up on
seeing
the
this.
screen.
Perfect.
Beautiful. Okay, so my name is John Creo, and I'm from Meadows Publishing Solutions. And today I want to take you through how to integrate variable data with Enfocus Switch. We're going to be demonstrating a product. Most of this presentation is going to be a product demonstration. I only have a few slides to go through, and then we're going to jump over and actually do a live software demonstration. We don't like to do any canned recorded video stuff. We like to do it all live, so who knows what's going to happen. And again, this is AccurioPro variable data, so let's just jump into it. First thing is, what is AccurioPro variable data? So this is a Konica Minolta software brand, and this encompasses a number of VDP-related products. The three we're going to be talking about today, and I'll give you more detail on that in a second. AccurioPro VDP is kind of the main product for doing variable data and designing variable data jobs. There's a server version of that we're going to be using, that in conjunction with Enfocus Switch. And there's also a brand new AccurioPro VDP Imposer. This is a very, very fast imposition tool that we designed for variable data. And it's kind of unique because you can design the impositions directly in Adobe InDesign. Now, there's a couple of versions of AccurioPro VDP. There's the Essential version. This is an exclusive version that's offered only through Konica Minolta. It's a low-cost, entry-level VDP software. This is really designed for direct mail applications, which comprise the vast majority of our variable data clients out there. And then there's the AccurioPro VDP Premium version. This is powerful, all in features, rules, copy fit, image caching, everything that you could want out of the product. And that's what we're going to be demonstrating today in conjunction with Enfocus Switch. So you might be wondering, how does Meadows fit into the picture here? Well, who is Meadows? We're a software development company. We're located outside of Chicago, Illinois here. And we specialize in variable data applications, data publishing applications. And we are the developer of AccurioPro VDP for Konica Minolta. Now, if you have the software already, you may notice this logo pops up in the splash screens, etc., powered by Design Merge. So Design Merge is our primary brand. That is a variable data tool. AccurioPro VDP is largely based on Design Merge software. So everything that we're showing today will work with either AccurioPro variable data or also with Design Merge software if we have clients out there that are already using that particular product. So what we're going to be presenting, so I'm going to get through these slides and then we're going to jump right into a live product demonstration. And I'm going to start out by showing you AccurioPro VDP. So that's the product that provides VDP features and it works directly in Adobe InDesign. And we're going to walk through an actual variable data job. We're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's important to understand what's possible with AccurioPro VDP before we actually jump into how to automate that with Enfocus Switch. Once we get through the intro, we're going to move over to Enfocus Switch. I'm going to show you how we can submit these jobs to AccurioPro running with Enfocus Switch to have complete job automation in that capacity. We're going to demonstrate the VDP Imposer there, and then we might have a little bit of time to talk about the PDF review module that I don't know if we'll have enough time at the end, but if we do, that's a very interesting module offered by Enfocus that will allow you to submit variable data proofs to your customers and get approval and manage that all in the context of an Enfocus switch flow. And then we'll just open it up for some questions at the end there. All right, so before we jump in, just a diagram of what we're kind of demonstrating here. So right in the middle of all this is going to be Enfocus switch running with a AccurioPro VDP server. And this could be running in a VM or running on a computer sitting over in the corner of your shop somewhere. So this is just running, waiting for stuff to show up. Some type of input is going to show up. And we're going to talk about the different types of input that could be supported here. And the first workflow we're going to walk through is you have designers that are preparing variable data jobs on their computers. They have a local copy of AccurioPro VDP. They prepare the job, they get it ready to run, and now they want to submit it to the AccurioPro VDP server so that all of that variable data, that heavy lifting, can be offloaded to the server, and you're not tying up the workstation waiting for these jobs to complete. The other workflow we'll talk about is a lot of times you have what we call recurring or repeatable variable data jobs. This is the same template where every week, every month, or whatever, you're just throwing different data at it. So you want to leave prepare the document, leave that resident on the server, throw some different data, and we're going to demonstrate that workflow, how we can produce that variable data output very, very easily. Talk a little bit about, there's another method if you have an FTP side, digital storefront, some type of automated system. You can also get data into the Enfocus switch system. Enfocus switch has pretty advanced support for metadata, supports a lot of XML capability. Our software natively supports a JSON format. So there are some opportunities there as well for automation. And then coming out the other side of all this is going to be an optimized version of a PDF file, a PDF VT file, so that we're only downloading the assets one time, very slim PDF that'll run fast on your digital press. And of course, you can also archive jobs coming out of a switch if you want to, keep them around for backup purposes or rerun, etc. So this is kind of just a diagram of the overall sort of picture, and we're going to demonstrate most of this here. So I mentioned this is going to be a live software demonstration, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to move over and we're going to start with Adobe InDesign. And some of you may recognize this particular job here. This is one of our standard demo files that we show quite often, but it's a great example because it really does show off the features and the power of AccurioPro VDP. So this is a direct mail postcard that is designed to solicit students for this particular college, and based on the interest level of the student, we're going to be swapping in relative graphics and changing out text and really trying to cater it toward the interest of the student. So when you install AccurioPro, you get a menu at the top of the screen here in InDesign. You get 3 different floating panels that we're going to be working with. It all works in Adobe InDesign. So the first thing is that there are no restrictions on how you design these documents. You just lay it out how you normally would. No restrictions on fonts, no restrictions on colors, no restrictions on transparency. Anything that you can do in Adobe InDesign, we totally support that for variable data. So you do run through a setup process. You're providing this, basically flat file CSV data. And what you're going to do here is basically choose the data file. And then that's going to show you here are the fields in the data file. And it automatically detects if this is comma or tab separated, etc. And then we have some options here for just general stuff. How do you handle what we call an empty link condition? So if you're doing an address block and you have an address to line, if that's empty, at this point, we can tell it, well, we want to delete that and get rid of the line so we don't have a space in the middle of our address block. Just common things that you can set up. And now once you run through that setup, you're going to see in the floating panel over here are those links that we just created, and we call these variable links. And now this floating panel is what we're going to use to prepare this document and assign variables. So let's start out with something simple. We've already got a place where we want a name to go. So I'm going to highlight that text and then find a link in here. And we have a link here called first name. I'm going to select that. I'm going to click the assign button on the panel. Now, if I take this out of preview mode for a moment, you can see these little green underscores. So that's what our links look like in the InDesign document. And you can see that we have a number already established. We have a couple up here and another one down here. So any range of text you can assign a variable link to. Now, we also support variable frames. For example, if we want to do a variable graphic, here we have a variable graphic frame. Everything in InDesign is in a frame. It's a variable graphic or variable picture frame. And we have a link here called main graphic. I'm just going to drag and drop that link, and you'll see a little icon up here that indicates this is now a tagged variable picture frame. Now, before we start any merging here, just real quick on these links that we're setting up. So there are different link types that we support: text, picture, barcode, articles, which are multi-paragraph text files like HTML files, or you want to pull in a Microsoft Word document as a variable. That's supported there. We even have this product called Group Picture to let you pull in InDesign content if you want to. For pictures, though, for this link, we provide options for automatically resizing the picture to fit within the frame. You have a number of options there, and you have separate options to control the horizontal and vertical alignment of the picture as well. So all of these links that we create, you can come in here and you can adjust the settings for these at any point. Okay, so we've got a few things tagged here. Let's go ahead and start up a preview session here. So we have this feature called Data Preview. And what Data Preview does is it opens this dialog window here. And this is nice because you can get a look at the data as it's being brought into the document. And you can sort this by the link or by the field number, etc. And so as we scroll through, we can see that we're changing out this variable graphic. We're changing out the name down there. And you notice some other things that are changing here too. So we're changing color, we're changing messaging. Again, we're really trying to cater this postcard toward the interest level of this prospective student. And a lot of the way that we do this uses rules. So rules would be like, if this, then do that. And we have a built-in rules module that's included with the software. Let me give you a look at that real quick. So to get to the rules module, I'll open the dialog. And there's three types of rules we support: link, page, and frame rules. Link rules deal with data, modifying data, styling data. Frame rules, you can modify frames, delete them, change the colors. Page rules are very powerful and very popular. Page rules allow you to completely change the layout, so you can hide and show layers or apply different parent pages here, and we'll do a demonstration of that. But to look at a simple rule, so here's one called set school name, and this simply is examining the interest area of the student here. And this says if the interest area contains the text business, then what that's going to do is instead of business, it's going to spell out School of Business. And then it's going to apply in InDesign what they call a style sheet in InDesign. That's going to control the color of that text. So for every possible interest level here, this rule is just changing the text and then changing the color. Now, I mentioned we have this page rule. What does the page rule do? Well, in this case, it looks at the interest area, and then it will hide and show different layers in the InDesign document. So effectively giving us a completely different layout based on the rules that you set up here. Now let's have a look at how we implement those. So this particular link down here already is set up for the interest area. And I'm going to go ahead and just add this rule to it called set school name. I'll replace that. And now what you see, if we do another data preview, you can see that now we're spelling out School of Education. And with the next record, we're spelling out School of Business. And we're also applying a different color to it. And you might notice this soft orange background going on behind there. That's an InDesign transparency effect. It just shows you that you can get really creative with the variable data designs here. Now, I mentioned that page rule, so we've got a separate panel for that. I'm going to apply this page rule to this page. And what you'll see now in this variable data application is that when we go to the School of Business, now we're completely changing the layout by showing different layers that we have hidden. So again, based on the criteria that you have set up, you can hide and show layers or apply parent pages and get some really high level of variability here. All right, so now let's just go down to the second page, talk about a couple other things. If we start up a preview down here, we can see that we've got variable text coming in down here. Barcoding, we have a linear barcode module and a 2D barcode module. So if you want to produce, here we're producing a QR code on the fly. You can also stylize this by applying colors to these 2D barcodes. And one thing that I want to point out here, so we go back to this first record, in the data preview panel, when you're scrolling through these records, you can see on the bottom there's a little checkbox there that shows you if there are any overset text conditions there. So an overset text condition is when the text is too wide to fit within the defined area, and that's very common in variable data applications. So if I see I have an overset, if I click this little icon here, that's going to show me the frame that's overset, and you can see how this is truncating there. And so to repair that, what we do is we have a product called CopyFit. This is a standard component of AccurioPro VDP. It's bundled with it. And what you can do is click on this frame, and for this one, I'm going to tell it I want to shrink this to fit. You have complete control over the parameters that get applied here. So I'm going to tag that frame, and that's going to make that variable. Let me put this out of preview mode so we can see that little icon. And then we have this frame up here where we're bringing in the name. Now, instead of shrink to fit, for this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an expand to fit. So I'm going to tag that frame. So now we have these two frames tagged with copy fit. If we go back into the preview, then you can see that now we're fully expanding this name to make it as large as possible. In the meantime, we're guarding against the over text here by just shrinking it enough to get it to fit. Okay, so that's a pretty fast run through of all the features. There's a bunch of other stuff we haven't covered, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what's possible with the software. Now, this job is now basically ready to be sent to the press. A couple other things you may want to run before doing that. We do have some tests you can run, such as a longest line test if you wanted to try to catch any oversets in advance. Or this is kind of important. We have a pre-flight report that you can run, and it will show you any variable assets, any variable pictures or variable articles, and make sure that you have everything ready to go before you start the job. Okay, so that's the capability that's possible in the design level. Now let's talk about how we're actually going to process this. So it is possible to run this out right from my desktop here. And what's going to happen there is that's going to tie up the workstation while this is processing. And so if this were, a 100,000 record job, that's going to take a little while to process. So what we want to do here is offload this to a workstation that's sitting in the corner over there, running Enfocus switch, waiting for these jobs to show up. So what do we need to send to Enfocus switch in order to process this? Well, when you think about variable data in the context of InDesign, you need at least two things. You need the InDesign document, and you need the data file. Beyond that, you also need any variable graphics, any static graphics. You need the fonts. Maybe you need an imposition template. So there's a number of assets that you need to submit to Enfocus switch in order for this to process a job. And collectively, those assets, we call that a package, a VDP package. And every version of AccurioPro has this VDP packager feature. So I'm going to run this right now. And what this is going to do is it's going to scan the data file. And it tells me that I need one data file, I need 5 static graphics, 5 variable graphics, and I'm using 9 fonts in this job, believe it or not. Now, we could also may add an imposition template here, or may have variable articles that are included, but this does a really good job of just telling you everything that's required. And if you see the status is okay, that means it found everything and it's good to go. So what I'm going to do is click Create VDP Package, and I'm just going to save this out on my desktop. And that goes pretty quickly. It's just going to create a little zip file where it's going to collect all of the assets for this job. And let me go ahead and I'll close this out, and we can just have a look on the desktop here. And we can see that we have the postcard zip file. This has everything now that we need to process inside of Enfocus switch. All right, so let's go ahead and have a look at Enfocus switch. And now we're going to move over and talk about how we automate this. All right, so what you're looking at on the screen now, this is Enfocus switch. And again, this is running on my local computer here, but this would normally be running in a VM on some other system, waiting for something to show up. And if we have a look at this flow, and I'm going to walk through this flow just so you know what's going on, and we're going to focus up on this part here first. So notice this wants a job folder. Same thing as the VDP package. If you were to unzip that package, there's a folder in there. We call it the job folder, and it's got everything in it that we need for this variable data job. So this folder would be mapped to a share somewhere, basically a hot folder. It's waiting for that package file to show up. Once the package file shows up, it gets routed through the rest of this flow, and it comes to this part of the flow here. Now, these are our app. These flow elements are from the AccurioPro VDP app, and they all have properties associated with them. So when we get to this node, which is labeled as pre-flight, there's a number of actions you can perform here. You can do a variable data merge, a pre-flight, imposition, create a package, or run a script. So here we're performing a pre-flight operation, and you can tell it what to check for in the pre-flight. Now, when we're talking about pre-flight in this context, we're talking about a variable data pre-flight. So we're just making sure we have all the assets available for the job. So it's not like something where it's checking the quality of a PDF or something. So in this case, we want this to fail if it doesn't have all the static graphics or it's missing some variable assets. You can kind of set this up to check for what you want to check for. Okay, let's say that there's a problem. Well, the kind of a core feature of a focus switch is the ability to branch at any point in the flow. So if you see these little branches here, this one going up to where it says failed pre-flight, there's this little stoplight icon here that switch uses. It's either green, yellow, or red. That represents success, warning, or error. And if I right click here, we'll notice that this output level, what they call it, is only for successful jobs. So only if this passes pre-flight would continue in this direction of the flow. Otherwise, if it's a warning or an error, it's going to go this way. And what ends up in this folder here is the complete job folder. Now, what's nice about that is there's no guessing about what this was looking for. All the assets are contained in this folder. So if you need to try to track down a problem, you just need to look at that folder. You could pull it out of there. You can run it manually using the desktop version of AccurioPro if you want to. And you could further embellish this by then continuing this flow and maybe send an email to an administrator notifying them that this job has failed. And you can pull in, the context, some of the error messages indicating why the job failed. Okay, so let's assume that this passes pre-flight. Now the next stop here is called VDP merge. And again, if we look at the properties, the only difference here is that for the action we're performing, we're doing a variable data merge operation. So this is going to merge the data and it's going to produce some type of output. In this case, we're producing a PDF VT output, which is an optimized version of PDF. It's designed for variable data printing. And with PDF VT, we ensure that since this job has these variable graphics, we're going to ensure that those are only downloaded one time. And then they're just included as a reference in subsequent records. That makes the PDF file very small and it'll run very, very fast on the press. And then we also have a feature in here that we call page sets per job. So if you have a very large job, let's say 100,000 records, you can specify here how to break that up into a series of smaller PDF files. Let's say you want to put 5,000 records in each PDF file. That can be handled automatically for you at this point in the flow. All right, if the VDP merge is successful, it comes out here. This is going to be a one-up VDP file, and then it's going to get routed through the rest of this branch here. This is the imposition part. So the PDF imposer module, the VDP imposer module that I mentioned is an add-on for AccurioPro variable data, and the action here is to impose PDF files. This is template-based, so you simply point it to the imposition template that you want to use. You can control the file naming here. And the way this flow is designed is that we're basically branching based on the dimensions of the PDF file. We're going to send it to one of three possible imposition templates. And then we want to end up in the final folder. Here's where everything's going to get placed. All right, so that's the whole flow front to back there. And let's go ahead and start it up so we actually see it do something. Now, we're using this with Adobe InDesign server and AccurioPro VDB server on the back end here. So when this starts up, I just clicked Activate Flow, and now it's waiting for something to show up. So again, in this sample flow, these folders are what they call an auto-managed folder. in a live scenario, these would just be mapped to a hot folder or, to an FTP site or waiting for some type of input to show up. And of course, the input that we want here, we're going to process this postcard job here, that package that we just created. So I'm going to put a hold right at this point in the flow just so we can see what shows up here after the merge. So I'm going to drop this into the hot folder up here. You'll see that this will appear as a 1. Not a whole lot of bells and whistles going on. You'll see a little progress down in this panel here, and you'll see as the job progresses, you'll see a 1 come up here as it does the pre-flight. Now it's already doing the VDP merge. And then if we look in the output folder here now, we have a postcard job. And if we open this, we can see this is the 1UP postcard job that's now been merged with variable data for all the records. It's a relatively small data file, but you can see that we're pulling in, it's respecting the rules that we have set up, all the variable data. Copy fit is doing its thing to expand that text to fit and to shrink to fit where it needs to. And so this job is basically ready to go to the press. So at this point, if you had your own imposition software on the press, you can just send this directly to a hot folder on the press or send it directly to the press. If you have the PDF Composer module, I'm going to go ahead and release this at this point. And what's going to happen is that 1UP files then they come down here and get branched off, get married up with an imposition template, and we're going to find the final imposed version of this file. So this is using an 8UP imposition template, and this is the final imposed version of this file now sitting in the folder, ready to go. So there's sort of a front to back way of, again, we started with Adobe InDesign Desktop. We designed this variable data piece, got all the variables ready to go, created a package, submitted it to Switch, and now all of the BDP processes, including the imposition, have been completely offloaded, and now this job is ready to go. Okay, not bad for a live demo, I would say. Well, let's talk about one other part of this flow here then too. Why not? So this part of the flow down here, you notice that this input folder is looking for a CSV file. So just a data file. And this is what we were talking about before, where I said that sometimes we have these recurring variable data jobs. It's a job that you're running every week, every month, and you're just throwing data at it, and you're merging with the same template. So we have the template that we're using sitting on the system where AccurioPro VDP server is running. And I'll just give you a quick look at that particular job here, just so you can see where we're going to produce. And by the way, these files that we're showing here, at least this one, these are downloadable. These are actually our tutorial files that we provide with the software. And this is a nice one because this shows off everything. So we've got variable text, we got a couple of variable images in here. We're using page rules to swap out the background here. So notice how that map is changing behind the scenes based on the region of the bank. And we've got a variable article down here. We're bringing in, a multi-line text file as a variable. So a lot of things going on here. So this is the job that we've got already saved on the system where AccurioPro VDP and Enfocus Switch are operating. All right, so we're dropping in a CSV file here. Now we know we need to have a CSV file and an InDesign document. Those are the two requirements. So how do we get that? Well, if we look at the very first flow element with the AccurioPro VDP app, and again, we look at the properties here, we can see that the action we're performing there is create VDP package. So the identical function that we just demonstrated out of the desktop, you can do that in the context of the Enfocus Switch server. And so what this is going to do is if we come up here to this property InDesign document, we're basically pointing to that bank letter job where it's residing on the system where Switch is running. So what's going to happen? It's going to take the CSV file, it's going to marry it up with this InDesign document, and then coming out to the other side is going to be a job folder or a VDP package, exactly the same thing that we were just talking about in the previous demonstration. So let's go ahead and demonstrate. I'm going to go ahead and activate this flow now, and we're just going to run this all the way through. And so now for this one, what we need is, not a package file. We actually just need a CSV file. So here's a bank letter data file. I think this has 1,000 records or something. I'm going to drop this into this folder. And so what will happen is that the CSV comes in, it's going to hit this part of the flow and get married up with that InDesign document. The job folder comes out over on this side. then that's going to get routed through pre-flight, through the VDP merge. If it's successful, it's going to come down through the imposition, and we see this job is already completed here in the background. So here's the letter, and let's go ahead and open this up. And now we can see that we've got, this is set just for a 2-up imposition template, and this is set ready to be sent over to the press. So again, that particular workflow there, we've already got a job designed with the AccurioPro VDP. It's residing on the same system as Enfocus Switch, and now we're just feeding it a different data file to start up a merge and then produce the variable data output, on a regular basis. All right, so that's the basics. Now I also mentioned there's other input formats here. We have a JSON format, if you're familiar with that, that we support. You can just drag that directly into the flow. Lots of support provided by Enfocus for metadata such as XML, etc. We're just kind of scratching the surface here with what's possible with Enfocus Switch. But I think this gives you a pretty good idea of how the variable data part of this is integrated with the software. Now, one last thing, since we got a little bit of time, I wanted to touch on. So there is another product that's offered by Enfocus called Enfocus Review. And so the way we might tie this into a variable data workflow, if we come back to this workflow, and we know that when we get to this point in the flow, we've basically got the 1-up job now ready to be imposed. In a scenario where you may want to submit some proofs to your customer, this flow could easily modify to have a separate branch for proofing. Let's say that we send 6 records or something for a proof. So instead of coming down here to the imposition, it would branch instead to a separate flow or a separate branch of the flow and put that PDF into this folder right here. Now what that's going to do is go to the Enfocus Review module. Enfocus Review will email that a link to that PDF to the customer and ask them to review this and to approve it. Now, if we have a look, I happen to have that job set up here in review, and this is basically what the customer would see here. So they would receive an email link, they would log in, they can review the job or the number of records that we sent here. We can make corrections here, or we can approve this to print, or we can cancel the job. So depending on what the user does here, if we have a look back at the Enfocus Switch workflow, and again, the big thing with the Enfocus Switch is this decision making and being able to branch to different parts of the flow. And this basically is branching based on the button that the user pressed there. So, and then so if the user approved it, this could be routed to imposition, or it could be routed back to this flow then to go through the entirety of the job, produce all records, and produce the imposition, and then come up with the final PDF file. So other options that you have available. One last thing on the in terms of these flow elements. So Davey mentioned the access to the Enfocus App Store. And we've used, like the other day, I needed to do something that was doing some timing tests, right? So I was like, well, I need something that's going to basically time how long it takes to get from one flow element to the other. And I just did, typed in like watch or something like that here. And so there was this thing I found called, Watch Reporter. This is a free app that just you can download from the App Store immediately, link it into your flow, and it ended up being a great tool. So definitely take advantage of the App Store, because there's a ton of opportunity up there as well. All right, let me jump back to the presentation here for a second. Start this back up. Okay, so that was the demo again. It was a live product demo. Nothing went wrong there. Not expected to. We've been doing this for so long. It's like we love to do live product demos, and we have fun doing it. But let me sum this up for you now. So AccurioPro variable data, the product works directly with Adobe InDesign. There's no document redesign. There's no conversion required. You're just working with Adobe InDesign documents. If you know InDesign, you're going to love working with this product. It's all menu driven. It's got a cross-platform user interface, so Mac and Windows, it's identical. There's no scripting required. So you notice in our rules module, it's all point and click. You don't have to learn JavaScript in order to code up some rules. Everything is designed to be as simple as possible from a user interface standpoint. Variable everything. You want text, images, articles, layouts. You could see just by the demo that we ran through the power of the tool in terms of achieving variability and anything you can do in InDesign. And this is key because a lot of other software products, they'll have trouble with fonts, they'll have trouble with different colors. And because we're coming out of InDesign, we don't have any of those issues. We support optimized VDP output. I mentioned the PDF VT already and how that's become kind of the industry standard. However, some older systems still support PPML. Matter of fact, most systems still support PPML. That was kind of a predecessor to PDF VT. We also fully support PPML in the context of Enfocus Switch and on the desktop as well. Automatic copy fitting we demonstrated. The rules capability, that's all included in the software. If you want barcoding, you can add that on. The imposition that we show. By the way, the imposition you're going to find is the fastest that you've ever seen for variable data. And we have a number of very large customers. Our largest customer is running millions of variable data records through AccurioPro VDP and also through the Imposer every week. And he's absolutely never seen anything that imposes as fast as this tool. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. You get free upgrades for newer versions of Adobe InDesign when those are available. There's free video training, documentation, free tutorials, just like the ones that I was just showing here today. This is all downloadable, freely available. And of course, most importantly, full integration with the Enfocus Switch. If you want lights out VDP automation, this is the tool that you want to be looking at. All right, so I would like to open this up for a little Q&A. First, thank you again for attending this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't overly technical. Now, I know that Noel Williams has been sort of monitoring any questions that may come in along the lines there, and we're going to open it up now for whatever questions we have. If you want more product information, AccurioProVDP.com. This is Accurio VDP workflow is the one that describes the Focus Switch. And then the sales info, just do request information. Sales rep can reach out to you. If you got any other questions, this is my personal email here, and feel free to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. So, Noel, I'm going to bring you on the line. You've been hiding in the shadows back there, but we have any interesting questions from the audience members?
Oh, sure. John, do you have a copy? You hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Right. Well, very good. Well, we have one burning question to start with, and that is, how large is your head?
Okay, so when Davey was presenting this, and I hadn't done a headshot in a while, and then he sent me this slide, and I just thought, my God, my head looks like the size of. And honestly, my wife says that Creos have very large heads. It's probably around the size of like a ham, like not a full honey baked ham, like maybe a small Crackus ham, something like that. So anyway, I know that was a setup question, but yeah, go ahead. We just thought we'd put a little humor into it. All right. Anything else? Anything serious that I can answer?
Oh yeah, we have a few. We have a few questions here for you. First question was, do you need a copy of AccurioPro for every workstation?
Yes. Well, that's an interesting question. Let me just go back to the diagram here for a second, if I can get back to it. Right. So these workstations, so in this scenario where you have workstations, yes, they do need to be running AccurioPro. However, there are different variants of AccurioPro. So in order to sort of amortize the cost, reduce the cost of the system, you get your main stuff running on the Enfocus Switch workstation. So you got your AccurioPro server with InDesign server and Focus Switch. On the workstations, we have, for example, we have a product called AccurioVDP Tagger. That gives you all the functionality of AccurioPro DB. It's unrestricted, but there's no direct output. So the way you submit the jobs is you package them and you submit those VDP packages, but it's an inexpensive option. You can load it on as many design workstations as you would like. And that really helps to kind of, again, sort of reduce the overall cost of the system. And it's an option. Now, most people, when they license this, what they'll do is they'll have one Enfocus switch. They'll have one full Pro version on a desktop, just as a backup for switch. And then the other workstations will typically be the Tagger version of the software.
Okay, very good. Next question was, what optional modules are available for the software?
Yeah, so the modules that we covered in the demo today, everything is included. The only two optionals modules that we covered was the barcoding. That's an optional add-on. Now, obviously, if you're doing intelligent mail, USPS intelligent mail barcoding, that's just linking a text, basically a text link to using a special font. There's nothing there. But if you want some, code 128, code 39, or you want QR code, data matrix, we do have an add-on module for that. And the VDP Imposer module I mentioned, that's also an add-on. Everything else is sort of included as a core component of AccurioPro VDP.
All right. Let's see. The next question is, does the software work with printers besides Konica Minolta?
Yeah, we've done extensive testing. We've been a partner with Konica for a long time now. I think it's like 12 years, and been tested on all the Konica equipment. But PDF VT, which is the primary output format from the software, as long as your press supports PDF VT, and I would say at this point, you'd be hard pressed to find a digital press that does not support it. Then it should work on any equipment. And one other thing about PDF VT is like it is quote unquote special PDF, but I mean you can open it just like a regular PDF, right? You can pass it around and you open it in Reader and it behaves just like a regular PDF, but it has the hints inside of it so that if you were processing this on a digital press that understands PDF VT, you're going to get optimal performance in that context.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Boy, there's a bunch of questions popping up here. Let's see. Do you need a Konica Minolta machine to acquire AccurioPro? We're using the HP Indigo and are not satisfied with the HP Smart Stream ATM.
Is that a setup question, man? Somebody actually asked that. Okay.
Somebody asked that question. Yeah.
Okay. We run into SmartStream all the time, and the HP. Somebody could be viewing this 5 years from now. As of today, I believe that HP does tie it, like you have to have HP equipment or something in order to buy it. But no, there's no restriction like that. You can license the software from Konica Minolta, and they're happy to sell it to you, and we're happy to support it. And you could be running any digital press out there as long as it supports PDF VT or PPML. You get all the same features there.
Okay. Boy, they're just popping up like crazy. Okay, next question here is, what are the competitive advantages versus Fusion Pro?
Well, the biggest thing that we see with Fusion Pro is that Fusion Pro is like we call it a standalone app, but you sort of do some level of design in Adobe InDesign, but it doesn't work in Adobe InDesign. So where does this fail? Well, the first thing is when you think about working in Adobe InDesign, actually, I'd like to jump over and show like some of the features. Let me put it this way. The job that we just ran through, that postcard job, will be impossible to do in Fusion Pro. And the reason is for transparency effects, type on a curve, Pantone colors, name 100 different Adobe InDesign features that are not available in Fusion Pro. So you can kind of design and get the basic geometry, but it's impossible to match. The reason is this is the big reason, is that the variable part produced by Fusion Pro is produced with Fusion Pro. Now, when we're producing this with AccurioPro, everything is coming out of InDesign. We're not doing half out of InDesign and half out of some other application. Well, why does that matter? Well, if you look at the text, right, and this is more like typography is kind of a dead art. But if you looked at the text coming out of Fusion Pro that's overlaid on top of variable data, there's a very distinct difference there. What they would call the color of the text. It looks different. Why? Because the H and J, the kerning and letter spacing is non-existent, not what you get out of Adobe InDesign. So Does that matter on an address block? No, that doesn't matter. But if you had a multi-paragraph newsletter and part of that was variable, you would notice a distinct difference. And the workaround, well, they would say make everything variable, which is, kind of ridiculous. So just being able to stay inside of Adobe InDesign and take advantage of all the features and not have to worry about any limitations like that, we feel that that's the biggest advantage going from something like plugin based to something like Fusion Pro that does the merging inside of I think it's Acrobat based.
Okay, next question. From what we researched, the review module is free with Switch? Question mark. So let's see. There's a okay.
I can answer that one.
Okay, go ahead, Davey. Yeah.
The app itself is free, but you do need an active subscription on review to be able to use it. Check out our website, go to Enfocus.com, products review, and there you can see more information about Enfocus review and also the pricing models as well.
All right. Thank you, Davey. The next question is, does it work with Adobe fonts because they cannot be collected?
Well, I would need to send you our knowledge base article on that particular topic. How do I phrase this? Adobe fonts are technically not supported in automated environments by Adobe, but they do work. But here's what you run into is in an automated system. You need to have you need to have a Creative Cloud account, obviously, that's running on the system where you've got this automation in place. So if the Adobe fonts are available on that system, then the job will run. But what we encounter often is that you'll have a separate Creative Cloud account that's running on the switch system versus where the user's working. So if the user gets in, some customer's job and it's using some strange Adobe font, they may activate it on their account. When they package it now and send it over to the press, it may get kicked out in that pre-flight stage and say there's a missing font. So, there are ways around that, and we've got an article, a knowledge base article that, gives you all the details about how to handle that stuff. So you're right, the Adobe fonts cannot be packaged, but, if you're running it on a system that's running with Adobe InDesign, then they are there and they are accessible.
All right, next question. How did the switch workflow determine what imposition scheme or layout to use?
Yeah, in this particular example, so we had it branching based on the, let me see if I can just jump over there for a second. So in this particular example, we're branching here, so based on the dimensions of the PDF. So this sort of records the dimensions, and then coming through here, if we look at these, we set up a condition here which says if this is all getting into the weeds with Switch, but Switch has a ton of variables and a ton of things that they track about jobs. So one of them would be if a PDF is working its way through the system, you can examine directly the width and the height of the trim box there. So we're simply looking at the dimensions of the PDF and based on that, making a decision about which imposition template to branch this to. There's other methods that you can do. So for example, if you know what imposition template that you need to use, you can have different hot folders for that. You can assign variables upstream at any point in the flow. You can assign a variable and then check for that variable later on to make decisions about how to branch the file. So there's a number, and I'm probably there's a number of other ways to do it, but some way you need to either designate it up front by assigning a variable, and that variable then become like what they call private data, so it follows the job all the way through. Or you can set up something that we've done here where it's making, just conditionally looking at the size of the file or something to that effect.
Okay. Next question is, can you do nested impositions?
Nested impositions. I'm going to say no, only because I don't know what that means.
Maybe the attendee could explain that a little more, and then we could get back to it. Okay, next question. We bump up against XMPie. Any points of key differentiation? How about Planet Press?
Well, XMPie is the closest competitor in terms of technology, so it's plug-in based, right? So when we're talking about XMPie UDirect, it's almost like there are features that we have that they, like our imposition module, the way we do copy fit, group picture, things like that. They don't have anything like that. But if you're looking to do variable text, variable pictures, conditional logic, look at them both. I would encourage you to look at them both. Which one do you like better? Here's one thing to keep in mind, though. If you go to our website and you look at the, some of the case studies, or go look at the, just whatever customers posted a comment about, what do they rave about most often? It's the level of support that we provide, over the top support from our support team, and we're experts at it. Now, if you've had some experience with Xerox and with XMPie, then I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But that's a very important consideration. So even if you said that XMPie and AccurioPro VDP were apples to apples, then look at how that product is going to be supported and make a decision that way. But we would encourage you to check out both products. We'll go up against XMPie all the time, and very happy to encourage people to check both of them out.
Okay, does generating a VDP package through Enfocus eliminate the need to pull in static images for every record?
Static overframe. Yeah, well, that's part of the PDF VT process. So if you have so let's say that you printed PostScript, right, or what they would call a fat PDF, which means that for 1,000 records, if you have a background image, that background image gets downloaded 1,000 times, and that results in a slow process, but b, a very large PDF file. So what we do is for PDF-VT, that's automatically going to be a cached item. So that's downloaded once at the start, and then you just have a reference to it in subsequent records. And we spent honestly, for the development of this software, I think we spent over a year just on the optimization. And so anything that can be optimized, meaning downloaded once, we do. And that includes not only static graphics, but variable graphics. There's where you've got the real challenge. So pulling in variable graphics, trying to get to cache those, we spent a lot of time on that. And you know what? The approach we came up with made a huge difference. This thing is as optimized as it can get. Also including like variable, the layer swapping that we showed, the parent page swapping, everything that can be cached is cached by the software. So that's where you get the performance. If you were producing something in a different software package that didn't have that, then yeah, you'd end up with a very large file because you have to repeatedly download these assets.
All right. Next question. Does Essentials offer any imposition options like XMPie?
Well, the imposition is a separate add-on component. That can be added to Essential, it can be added to Starter, it can be added to Premium, it can be added to any of the versions of the software. So that works, independently of the version of AccurioPro VDP that you're running. So I guess the answer is yes, you can license Essential and have the imposition feature as well. And by the way, if you're not even running Switch, if you're just running the desktop version of it, that imposition tool is integrated with the desktop version as well. So at the time when you start up a merge to produce the variable data output, you can choose the imposition template right then. So you can do it at the point where you create the variable data, or you can do it as a post process. And it includes a batch processing feature, and there's a lot built into that imposition. It's a really powerful tool.
Okay, they keep on coming. Let's see. Next question. Yeah, I'm getting lost in all this stuff. Okay, I thought tagger licenses were per user basis. That's basically what the statement. I think it's a question. They're sold on a per user basis? Is that the question? John, do you have an answer for that?
Are they sold? Yes, they're sold at, well, per workstation basis. I mean, on per user, but
Right. Okay. Per workstation basis. So, yes. Let's see. Next, is it possible to add extra steps in Switch to build the CSV data set or to manipulate it before it becomes a source?
The short answer is yes, absolutely. And there are actually that's where the App Store. I know that there's at least one app up there that's like a CSV to CSV splitter tool. And we just have a client that was running a job where they ended up splitting the CSV upstream, which in a lot of cases can be a more efficient way to do it. So yes, there are tools. I don't think there's anything that's built into kind of the core group of flow elements that Switch provides, but I know for sure there are apps available for processing, like even native Excel data, and splitting that up into into CSV files that can then be brought into the flow.
Well, there are a lot of apps on the App Store that handle CSV. CSV Splitter is one. Excel to CSV, Excel to XML. We have a lot of those tools that can manipulate any kind of data set.
Right. Absolutely.
How are we doing on time here?
Yeah, maybe
We
take like two more questions, then we should probably
Of
wrap
course,
it up.
you can also come back to those questions by email. I'm going to forward you the questions also after
Yeah.
this webinar.
All right. Let's do one more question, then we'll wrap it up.
okay. Let's see. Last question in the list so far is we did that. Okay, is there a scheduling function in Switch that can allow for the user to set the time they want for printing jobs? Also, can it predetermine the amount of stock to be used and if the particular tray has enough paper to complete the job?
Yes.
Thanks, David.
In every connection, for example, in Switch, you have a release schedule. So that means, for example, that in the flow itself, you can determine when the job is going to be released to the next stage. To answer the stock, predefine the stock, yes, this can be done through a kind of lookup table functionality in Switch, and also predefine the stock before it's been sent to the DFE, depending on which kind of DFE that you use. Now, we do have apps that connect to HP where you can do this. We also have apps that connect to Canon PrismaSync that is also able to do that. And same thing for Fiery. If you're using a Fiery DFE, you're also able to do that here as well. We also have a new app that connects to Accurio as well, to Comic and Minolta. Bear with me. It is I'm just looking on the App Store right now. It is the AccurioPro Flux Submit, and that app also does that as well.
Okay, all right. Well, we didn't get quite everybody in here, but back to you there, John.
Yeah, I think Dave, if you want to wrap it up, I mean, I just want to thank everybody for showing up and great questions. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
surprised there are so many questions, but yeah, very, very good. And hopefully everybody got a good feel for what's possible with this tool. And then, and email us if you've got any questions and you want a trial license or what have you.
Mhm.
And we're happy to help.
Yeah. Well, perfect. And thank you to actually organize this webinar together with us. Great addition to the App Store, great addition to the Works with Enfocus Switch program as well. We're going to do more webinars like this in the future as well. And there's going to be some other webinars coming in the near future as well. Thank you all for your presence. Thank you all for the a lot of questions that you asked through the Q&A. I will be sure to forward all those questions also to John and to Noel so they can come back to you as well. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this webinar and see you at the next one.
Thanks, Davey.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.